Hey Starseeds, this is going to be a really special interview that I had with the ninth Dimensional Arcturians as channeled by Daniel Scranton. Daniel Scranton is one of the most important human channels that I've had the pleasure of learning from in this incarnation. He channels various different dimensions and various different beings, including the creators, Hathors, Pleiadians, but most primarily the Arcturians. And in this interview, I ask a few personal questions that has to do with my experiences, but I do believe that if you're tuned into my video, then somehow it is also relevant to your frequencies that you're experiencing. I didn't necessarily ask to clarify all of the various different experiences that I had, simply because I feel that I wasn't ready to get clarity on those situations. So even if I do have a certain knowledge about what happened to me, I still wanted to hear the Arcturians as they are channeled through Daniel, because he has a different set of belief systems, and it's often very beneficial to get the higher dimensional perspectives as channeled by other people. Because what's really important when you're working with channels, and even when you're working with your own higher selves, is to notice that on the third density that we've been experiencing, there's always some sort of complex distortion and convoluted belief systems that the higher dimensions have no choice but to kind of funnel itself through that, because that's the way that it could communicate to you. So even if you're so used to working with the Arcturians on your personal self, it's always nice to hear it from somebody else. But what's also important to remember is that the other channel also has their own distortion and their own filter. So make sure that you are not so attached to specific details, or that you're not relying on the other person to channel some kind of absolute truth, because absolute truth can't be translated anyway. But I do highly recommend that you get in touch with Daniel Scranton for a personal reading if you resonate with mine, because I personally had such a profound experience. This was the first time I worked with Daniel on a channel session. I had a light language session before this, but working with him in this way, I was able to really sense a huge personal transformation on this energetic level because of the way that he was channeling them for me. And it was really one of the best days of my life, from the information that came through, especially if you know about me and my personal journey. And you've seen my Starseed Awakening video about how I used to have fluid connections with these other dimensions, especially elementals and fairies. It's very interesting that when I asked Daniel's channeling of the ninth dimensional Arcturians, they brought this experience up. And to me, this was very emotional. So I was almost crying, and then I started laughing, and they were really funny because they gave me this wave of like humorous compassion when they noticed that I was pretty emotional. It was just an amazing experience. These are a mixture of questions. Some of them were pre-listed, and some of them I have my own belief systems, but like I said, I wanted to hear their perspective, and some of the questions were asked in proxy of the collective. I tuned into your energy and what you might want to hear, and then I asked a few questions in that way. And I hope you really enjoy this as much as I did, and I really think that it will help you gain a new perspective on this reality that we're living. So enjoy, and much compassion and love to you. Thank you.
Greetings. We are the Arcturian Council. We are pleased to connect with you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
We are doing wonderfully well, thank you.
Are you guys happy?
We would describe ourselves as more sublimely blissful.
Do you ever get happy? Is it just happy?
Happy is more of an emotional state. Happy usually is something that you experience because something has happened that has triggered that happy state for you. Whereas what we experience is less polarized in the sense that if we had a happy, then we would also have a sad.
Do you ever feel sad?
We do not.
What's the lowest frequency of feelings that you would feel?
There's no equivalent to it for you. In other words, we go from sublime blissfulness to more pronounced blissfulness to less sublime blissfulness. Those are the extremes to which we can go here in the ninth dimension. But sadness, we have a faint recollection of.
When you connect with humans, do you feel less sublime because you're merging your consciousness with us?
No. We're able to maintain our state of being even with the merging that happens. If we were to lower our vibration too much, we would not be of much value to all of you.
Do you ever explore outside of your own identity or dimension as
Yes.
being Arcturians?
Oh yes, we are exploring your dimension and your solar system right now.
Other than Arcturians, what would you identify as? Like, for example, if human starseeds identify as Arcturians or Andromedans, do you identify as other systems?
We know that we are not solely Arcturian. We identify as Arcturian because this is the star system in which we have evolved and ascended. But yes, we do know that we have a past in other parts of the galaxy and that we have a future that also involves other parts of the galaxy, because we will not consider ourselves to be Arcturian once we shift to the 10th dimension.
How come you don't want to go to the 10th dimension and reside there? How come you like being in the 9th?
Well, we will be in the 10th dimension soon. We are going to shift along with all of you. As you shift, we shift.
Okay. I have a personal question. If I have a relationship with Sanat Kumara, who I understand as being Arcturian.
If you have a relationship?
Yes.
What do you mean by if you have a relationship?
He tends to come up a lot in my personal experience or downloads. So I was wondering if there's some sort of connection there.
In past lives, yes.
Is there a way for me to know what kind of relationship?
Well, student-teacher,
Okay.
father-daughter, sister-sister, mother-daughter,
So everything?
friend, yes, lover, all, yes.
Does everyone have this relationship with him?
If you've spent any amount of time in the Arcturian system, then chances are you've had at least one.
Oh, okay. What from your perspective? I just have a few personal questions, and then I can ask more for other people.
Very good.
But what are my strengths?
You're a very giving person. You're very compassionate, intuitive, empathic, trusting, and open. So the openness that you have is perhaps what's going to be most valuable to you as you continue on in this ascension journey, because you need to be open in order to receive.
And what are my weaknesses?
Not having strong enough boundaries, not acknowledging yourself enough, in other words, not giving enough to yourself or giving yourself enough credit, not having enough, as much self-worth and self-love as you could, and not always being grounded and focusing yourself in the present.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
So I have some memories. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to ask you these kinds of questions, but, well, first of all, can you tell me a bit about my starseed heritages?
The first physical incarnation was in the Pleiadian star system as a seventh dimensional orb. So that's where you first came in to the galaxy, but you led most of your lifetimes in our star system. And so the fact that you've spent the most time here in Arcturus, or the Bootes constellation, because you've spent the most time here, and because the lifetimes that you've spent here have been the most pleasant lifetimes that you've had in the entire galaxy, that's why you feel a particular affinity for us and for our star system.
Okay, what about Sirius?
You've had several lifetimes there, mostly as aquatic beings, water-based. In other words, swimming around in the oceans there.
What about Andromeda?
Yes, you've had some very challenging lifetimes there.
Okay.
It's like a mirror for Earth.
Wow. Orion?
Indeed. Orion lifetimes where you played both ends of the spectrum there in terms of the victim and the perpetrator experiences that Orion is famous for.
Okay. So did I have also lifetimes in Atlantis and Lemuria?
Yes.
And I just remember when I was a young child in this lifetime as a human, I had this one distinct memory of having a timeline fracture, and I was wondering if that had anything to do with some sort of extraterrestrial abduction.
It's a memory from a past life where you were a time jumper.
Oh.
And you're experiencing some of the guilt from that lifetime, from having been responsible for fracturing that timeline.
Oh. Okay. And so have I had any alien abductions in this lifetime that I don't possibly remember because it's traumatizing?
Not because it's traumatizing, but because it would take you off of your path to have all of those memories. And when it's appropriate for you to have them, you will.
Okay.
But right now, given where you are on your journey, it's better that you don't remember so that you can work out what you still need to work out with the humans there on Earth. And then you can deal with the experiences you've had with extraterrestrials and process those as well.
Could you give me a better idea of, you said what I'm supposed to do with these humans. What am I supposed to do? Although I know on a level, I would like to hear you refine it a little bit for me.
You need to let go of certain very third-dimensional experiences. And so you need to, on the earthly plane, you need to let go of what other people think of you. And you also need to experience forgiveness of the others who are harming the planet and harming the other humans and the animals and the environment. And again, to work on the relationships that you form, the friendships and the romantic relationships that you form, to be more in balance in those, where you're able to be in your power, to stand in your power, and to be in your feminine and your masculine energy at the same time, so that you're not being taken advantage of by anyone. And then you're going to step into the time where you act as a guide and a healer to others, and that will bring up a whole new set of challenges. Again, focusing around boundaries and so on. So around that time is when you're going to be feeling the memories coming back to you about what has occurred.
Okay.
In the alien experiences, the visitations, and the contributions that you've made to the hybridization program.
Oh, well, I have a couple of memories that I remember that I identify as Arcturians. And was that right? Like, the first time I saw this spaceship in 2014, was that an Arcturian ship?
Yes.
Thanks for coming.
Well, it wasn't us. There are many Arcturians, you know. We don't have a ship because we don't have a body that would need a ship.
So these ones were less...
Fifth dimensional.
They were... Okay.
Yes.
Are they my family?
You have some that were on the ship there that were part of your soul family, yes.
Wow. Do you know their name?
Antah, Antah, and Ramona.
What's your name?
We don't have names. We are a collective, and we're non-physical, and so when we bump into other collectives up here in the 9th dimension, we recognize them by their energy signature, not by the labels that they've given themselves or that others have given them.
Okay.
So other councils and collectives in the 9th dimension don't see us as the 9th Dimensional Arcturian Council. They just see our energy and they recognize us.
Okay.
You see?
Are you higher selves of Daniel?
Daniel's higher self is 5th dimensional, and his oversoul is 10th dimensional, but his oversoul has aspects that are within our collective. So in that sense, we are intertwined.
Okay. Well, if the one thing that I have trouble processing is if everything is one and everything is interconnected, how is it so that some things are more connected than other things, like you mentioned how Daniel's oversoul is somewhat connected to you? Like, how does it make it less connected than other things?
Well, because you all and we all want to have the experience of individuality.
Okay.
So it's about creating experiences, even though within that truth that you just said, everything is one, we are all connected, we are all one. But for example, you could say that about everyone on planet Earth. You could say you're all one, you're all connected, and that would be true. But then you have relationships with family members and friends, and relationships with romantic partners, where you have more energy going back and forth between you and that other person or those other people. So you're going to feel more of a connection with those other people because of the amount of energy that has been sent back and forth between you. It doesn't mean that you are any more at one with those individuals, but that's your experience.
Okay. Yes.
So you're there creating experiences, and that's the only real truth that you have, is your experiences of reality.
Okay. So there was a time that these light beings came to my room in Toronto. Were they Arcturians?
The light beings.
They were this green signature, and they gave me this holographic download about creating artificial reality technology.
No, they were not from our star system. They were Alpha Centaurian.
Oh. Are they service to other beings?
Yes.
Are they related to my heritage?
They're not members of your soul family. They're just there helping anyone who's awake enough to experience them in some way. So you lit up for them, and they came to give you that experience because they could see that you were ready for it.
Okay. So this starship that I saw in 2014, the Arcturian starship,
Yes.
it was with a friend. Was that because we were both Arcturian?
Yes.
Were we, I guess, soulmates for the time being?
Well, soul family members, yes. And sometimes you have that type of soulmate connection. But a soulmate is not just one person.
Right.
It's an experience.
Okay. Do you guys believe in this whole twin flame soulmate romantic relationship thing, or are you more?
Well, we're beyond all of that in the ninth dimension, but what we say about it from our perspective is that you have relationships, just as we were identifying earlier when we were talking about how you have more energy moving back and forth between you and those that you've spent a lot of time with. So think about how that works when you have lifetimes and lifetimes of experiences across dimensions and star systems with the same individuals.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to feel more attracted to someone that you've had that type of relationship with before. And you will have your romantic relationships with soulmates at various times, and you will have relationships with twin flames that may be romantic and may not, but those relationships will be more about your spiritual growth and what you need to work on. Typically, the twin flame relationships are harder relationships to be in, and they're not always romantic.
Okay.
When you make a soulmate connection with someone, it's usually someone that you've had a romantic partnership with in several previous experiences, sometimes hundreds of previous experiences across star systems, lifetimes, and dimensions. And so those relationships are different from twin flame relationships in that they don't have to be about taking you to the next level of your spiritual development. They're just going to be relationships that are very strong and very powerful.
Yes.
It doesn't always mean that they last forever either. Otherwise, if you look at the divorce rate that you have, you would say, well, then people are just getting married to people who aren't their soulmates and finding out at some point. No, they're still having the soulmate experience with that person, but there are more than one soulmate present on the planet for each of you. So while that soulmate connection is there, you may think it's going to be forever, but it doesn't necessarily last forever.
Okay. Is it so that every individual is actually a collective consciousness?
Yes.
Okay.
But you don't have to experience yourself in that way. In other words, every person, every ego is striving to know itself more as an individual. When the ego starts to wake up, the ego starts to realize that it's more than just one being.
Right.
The higher self always knows that it's more than just one being. The oversoul always knows. But the ego has to awaken to that first. And then can start to have that experience of itself as a collective. And the ego is very fragmented. So when the ego starts to bring all the different fragments of itself back in, that's when it starts to recognize, oh yes, I am more of a collective than an individual. And that's when it can accept the higher self. And when the ego accepts itself as the higher self, then it's like the blinders come off. In other words, it's all about stripping away the illusion and stripping away the filters that brings you to the knowing of who you really are. Yeah.
One thing I would like to know about higher dimensional beings is, if you don't experience linear time, how do you spend your time?
Well, think about how you experience linear time when you're in bliss. Are you thinking about the past or the future?
No.
You're just very present, and when you're present and you experience yourself as expanding out, that's when you get a glimpse of what it's like for us all the time, so to speak.
But it's like that all the time. So
Yes.
do you plan anything, or?
No. We don't plan, but we still are able to have conversations. about strategies for how to help humanity. And in that sense, you could say that we're planning to do something that we haven't done yet, but we're very present with it.
Okay, well, aren't you kind of co-creating our reality as well?
In a sense, yes, we have agreements. Everything is by agreement. So any help that we give you is not really coming from outside of you because you're co-creating it with us. We cannot assert ourselves onto you and say, you're going to receive this help, you're going to receive this love, you're going to receive this upgrade no matter what. All we can do is offer it to you.
Okay.
That was the end of part 1. I split it into 2 parts so that it's not so long, because it would have been 1 hour. So I will meet you at part 2 if you're interested in watching more. Also, please let me know if you like this video by commenting or liking this video. And if I get really good feedback, then I'll do this on a regular basis, where I have conversations with other channels and healers and ask questions about myself and the collective. Thank you.